Good evening, my friends. Tonight we leave the clocks and the electric lights far behind. I invite you to travel back with me to a small town in the far folds of the Middle Ages. Imagine a life where there are no alarms, no electricity, no running water, where time itself is kept not by ticking hands, but by the steady, silent pulse of your own body. Tonight, you are not who you were. You are something simpler, something older. Tonight, you are the town's baker, and your world revolves around heat, patience, and quiet labor. So, dim the lights. Take a deep breath and step softly into the silence of a time long past. You are waking now, or rather, surfacing. It's not the kind of waking that comes from a deep, restful sleep. No, this is different. It's more like you're rising from a dream half-formed, from a breathless doze, rather than a true slumber. Your eyes remain closed, but your body knows. It knows, like it has always known. There's something deep inside of you, bone deep, that understands this moment, that has measured it without a single clock. It has kept time with the stars, with the air, with the slight drop in temperature and the shift of silence. This is the hour of the wolf, that ghost thin slice of night, delicately trapped between midnight and first light, a time that feels both hidden and sacred. The world around you is silent, unnaturally so, wrapped in a hush that lies heavier than snow. Even the birds are still. No bells, no hooves, no wind, just the breath of your family, lying close by. You open your eyes, and there's only black, not a soft black, a full black, a black so completed, presses down on your eyelids with weight and texture. You blink, but it makes no difference. The darkness here is rich, layered, almost velvet, as if it were a presence of its own. You're lying in your bed, such as it is. The mattress below you is little more than a wooden frame filled with dry straw. It crinkles softly with each tiny movement of your limbs, whispering against the wool of your nightshirt in crisp, brittle rhythms. The hay is laced with its own scent, sweet and rural, with hints of dust and sleep. It carries the ghost of last year's field. The walls around you are wooden and thick, but not without the cracks that let cold air slip in, nosing along your blanket's edge, crawling under the covers like a polite but persistent guest. The air smells old, dry wood, soaked in years of smoke. The faintest memory of a fire, long since gone out, that once crackled behind the hearth. There is the smell of stone dust from the floor you will soon place your bare feet upon, the stale perfume of wool, and over it all, without fail, the scent you know best, the one that lingers on your fingernails, your breath, your dreams, flour, and yeast, that quiet, soft tang of fermentation, sharp, but not sour, alive, but not loud. There is something soft about it, something intimate, the smell of bread, not yet born, a smell that is, in a way, you. You shift carefully. Your wife lies near, motionless, her breath a steady rhythm, as reliable as sunrise. Your child, bundled in a small bed nearby, snuffles faintly, turning in his sleep, a tiny sigh following a dream. Their breaths are the only music in this hour, steadily rising and falling, warm and rhythmic, like distant waves against a shoreline, an anchor, a small comfort in the otherwise void blankness surrounding you. You move slowly, carefully, not out of nervousness, but because you know what it means to wake before the world is meant to stir. Silence has its own laws. You are a guest in this hour, and if you make too much noise, it will send you back to sleep. But you cannot afford that. Time is already slipping forward, like warm water through your fingers. Your feet find the floor. Cold pours into you like it's being pulled up in a bucket. The stone is hard, unforgiving, icy enough to steal your breath, but it grounds you, pulls you fully into this body, this moment, and you are awake now, truly awake. You reach for your woolen coat. It's not soft, and it's not new. The wool is thick and scratchy, but necessary. It smells like sheep, like old closets, a bit of smoke, and stable straw. You pull it over your thin shift, the heavy sleeves falling around your forearms. You do this in the dark, as you always do. Each movement as familiar as breath. You could find every belonging in this room blindfolded, and most days you do. A few quiet steps across the stone flag floor, enough to reach the heavy, iron-latched door that separates your home from your work. You find the latch easily, drawing it out with the quiet gentleness of practice. The wooden door creaks in the hinges like an old man grumbling from a dream, but it's not angry, just weary. You treat it with the same patience you do your bread, and it listens, yielding as you slip into the chill just beyond. And now, you are in the bakery. You don't need light to see it. In your mind, it takes shape instantly. The broad wooden worktops, the cavernous black maw of the oven in the corner, the flour-stained tools lined like soldiers on their hooks. Even in deep shadow, you know the texture. The grooved wooden counters polished by years of kneading, the dull thud of your steps muffled by scattered straw. There is a window. It's high, small, just an open square cut into the stone wall, with no glass, only a shutter that was never closed. Through it, the moon spills in, white and distant and clean. Its soft light sharpens the angles of the room into silver and ash. Dust floats upward in the beam, moving slowly, like tired spirits rising from the night's breath. Your breath turns to mist here too. The bakery is colder than your home. The oven is still cold, a sleeping beast. And in this moonlit, cold, and perfect silence, you begin. You cross the room slowly, your bare feet brushing softly against scattered flour on the stone floor, your coat wrapped tightly around you as your fingers move by instinct, not sight, toward the large lidded wooden vessel resting quietly against the far wall, a rounded barrel smoothed by countless quiet nights just like this one, its surface worn to a polished calm by generations of hands, yours among them. The air grows heavier here, not warmer exactly, but dense with something ancient, something alive. You lean in, lift the damp linen cloth gently from the top of the barrel, and there it is, the heart of your work, the soul of your bread. The smell rises to meet you first. It's sharp, sour, deep. It carries with it echoes of fermenting fruit, of apples left in a cellar, of wine still turning in its cask, but underneath, always, is the clean bitterness of grain, the wild perfume of time made edible. You close your eyes, breathing it in slowly. This is your oldest companion, your most loyal apprentice, your one living tool, the starter, the mother, the old dough. Others in town may call it something different. Some don't name it at all, but you know it simply as your treasure. It is, in the plainest sense, alive, nestled beneath the linen, this slow-moving creature, made of water and flour and invisible guests, has swelled and shrunk, eaten and rested for longer than you care to remember. Some say the best starters are 100 years old. Yours is not that old yet, but it came from your master, and from his master before him, passed down in quiet cups and spoonfuls, tended to like a family heirloom more precious than any ring or sword. You reach for the long-handled wooden spoon beside the barrel, its narrow handle familiar in your grip, and dip down carefully. The dough-like mixture resists at first, thick, elastic, slowly yielding. It clings to itself, stretching in long, slow threads, rising reluctantly from the bottom, clinging to the bowl like something half dreaming, reluctant to wake. You scrape up a generous glob, coiled and heavy, and place it gently into a clay bowl warmed earlier by proximity to the hearthstones. The starter slumps into the bowl with a satisfying weight, a quiet thud, followed by a gurgling sigh as its surface softens, beginning, even now, to awaken. You move to the shelf, where your flour waits in linen sacks, folded carefully closed. One, you know by its weight. Another, by the finer feel of the weave. You reach for the one nearest, stone ground, coarse, warm to the touch from the friction of its milling, still speckled with the tiniest fragments of husk. It has weight. It has truth. You scoop a generous heap into the bowl, dust lifting into the air, falling in slow spirals like snow. Then water. You touch its surface first, testing its temperature with your knuckle, cool but not cold. It must never be cold. Life does not stir in cold. Now your hands. There are tools for mixing, wooden spoons, horn paddles, but for this, your fingers know best. You curl your sleeves, past your elbows, bare your wrists, dip your hands into the bowl, and begin to stir. At first, the mixture pushes back. It is sticky, cleaning, awkward to shape. Your fingers catch on the lumps, drag through the grit of dry patches and slick pools of wetness. You move slowly. Patiently, you are not mixing food. You are waking something that sleeps. The bowl is quiet, except for the soft, wet sounds of movement, flesh against clay, hand through paste, breath slowing as the texture changes beneath your touch. The dough begins to change, almost imperceptibly at first. It grows smoother, supple, slightly warm against your skin. It no longer clings desperately, but responds, bends, adjusts, like a cat stretching after sleep. Here it is, that magic, quiet, and unspoken. You know the science. Though you wouldn't call it that, you feel it, intuitively. This isn't just flour and water and air. This is passage. This is a ritual. And like any ritual, it demands that you show up fully. You do not rush. To rush would be to frighten it. To ruin it, you press the mixture gently through your knuckles, folding it into itself with slow, circular movements, your hands moving like tides, like breathing. Over time, the mixture gives itself over to your rhythm. It is not ready yet, but it is becoming. You pause to wipe your wrist on your coat, the cloth now dusted faintly in flour, and look down again. The starter has begun to shift. Small bubbles rise on the surface, a soft freckling of foam, a muttered breath from a once silent mouth. It is starting to live again, starting to eat. Soon, it will be ready to share its breath, its flavor, its soul. But for now, you set the bowl aside, placing it on a wooden shelf, just high enough to catch the sleepy warmth, beginning to rise from the stone oven behind you, still waking from its own slumber. Your hands are sticky, cool. They smell of acid and earth. You wash them in the bucket by the hearth, splashing quietly, drying them on the same cloth you've used for years. It holds the scent of hundreds of sunrises, hundreds of small miracles. You look at the bowl again, where the thick, half-living mass now rests, rising slowly under its cover of clean linen, like a breath being drawn. You've done your part. You've nudged it from its sleep. Now it waits, nestled near the sleepy heat, patiently beginning the slow work of becoming bread. Behind you, in the far corner of the room, the oven rests like a sleeping beast, broad, low set, and round-backed like the shell of an enormous tortoise, cracked with age and stained with centuries of soot and fire. Its arched mouth, a dark, gaping hollow, does not invite you in. It waits, patient and cold, heavy with silence. This is the heart of your bakery, the creature to which you give fire and time each night, and in return it transforms dough into sustenance, effort into survival. But right now it is lifeless, the ashes of yesterday burned out and gray, with only the faintest memory of heat clinging to the stones. That will have to change, and soon. You kneel before it slowly, not in reverence exactly, but with the deep caution owed to something capable of both nurturing and destroying. There is power here, real and primal, even hidden as it is beneath soot and brick. You reach for the iron scraper, its long wooden handle smooth from use, the blade at the tip nicked and dark from countless hours inside the oven's mouth. It's a heavy tool, familiar, comforting. In a way, you slide it in carefully. The scraping begins, and a sharp screech echoes across the walls, the metal dragging across stone. It's an uncomfortable sound, not loud, but precise and unpleasant, cutting through the air like a blade. Again, you drag it back and forth, gradually collecting the soft remains of yesterday's fire, ashen curls, splintered blackened wood, powder and memory. The scent rises with it, sharper than you remember. Yesterday's heat, diffused and spent, bitter, smoky. Your eyes sting slightly, not from emotion, just from dust and ash in the cold air. You squint, focused only on the motion. Scrap, pull, tap. You do not rush. Each stroke is mechanical and smooth, your body moving in rhythm, even in the dark. This is what your arms were made for. This is work that needs no thinking, no speech. All your body knows it. Ashes fall out of the oven's lip and collect at your knees, and you scoop them carefully into a clay bin at your side. You will not throw them away. Nothing is wasted here, not even the remnants of yesterday's fire. Your wife will use them later, for lye, for cleaning, for making soap, maybe even to scrub the long-handled baking paddles, or to polish the iron tools stained with flour and time. Ash is useful. Everything is, when you own little. The scraping is done, and now the beast stands clean, but still hollow, still cold. You stretch slowly, rising to your feet and rolling your shoulders, the weight of repetition already beginning to settle into your muscles. You step past the shelved tools and around the corner of the shop to the back door, lifting the latch with a dull clunk, allowing a gust of autumn air to slide into the room like a thief. The sky outside is not yet lit by dawn, but there's brightness in the stars, sharp, unmoving, ancient, and indifferent. Behind the shop, silently piled along the old stone wall, is your wood. You selected it weeks ago, delivered by cart, hauled down from the edge of nearby thickets and broken hills. The best fuel you could barter for this season. Oak, beech, a few pieces of hazel, all dry, all honest. You run your fingers over one half-split log, noting the dryness in the grain, how it splinters and resists your touch. No sap, no damp, not too light, not too green. You gather a load in your arms. It's heavy, and the rough bark scratches your skin through the sleeves of your coat. The firewood is resistant. Awkward, unbalanced. You carry it anyway, as you always do, your breath fogging in the night as your boots scrape quietly against the damp stone. You set the logs down beneath the oven sill and go back for more. Again and again. The ritual begins. First, the kindling, splinters of thinner sticks, some dry straw, a few handfuls of finely shaved bark you gathered earlier in the week. You build it low in the center of the oven, It must breathe, but not collapse. You create a hollow pyramid, careful not to crowd it. Air is fuel too. Then the medium wood, smaller logs, cracked open evenly, stacked crisscross over the kindling, leaving space between each piece like a lattice for wind to wrap its fingers through. Finally, at the edges, you place larger logs meant to burn slow and hot and deep into the brick. You look at it once, twice, testing it with your eyes the way others test bread with their hands. Then, it's time. You retrieve your fire starting kit from its hook. A bit of flint, its surface worn but sharp, and your fire steel, foreign and cold. In your other hand, you carry a small leather pouch filled with dry fire strands and curled willow bark and the cherished flame blossoms. You pick each late summer, naturally dry, feathery heads ready to catch at the first spark. You kneel before the kindling like a priest at the altar, centering your breath, drawing your body in. You strike the flint, a sharp sound, a flash, again, stronger, a blister of yellow light in the dark. Smoke rises, white and curling, twice more. Then a spark holds. You lower your face, lips pursed into a tunnel, and blow gently, patiently, not so strong as to kill it, not so weak to let it go. There's a softness to this motion, a breath with purpose, a whisper that carries heat. The spark glows red, then orange, then life, flame. It's small at first, just a tiny curl of fire drawing itself out of sleep like a lazy cat. Then it leans into the bark beside it, pulls at the straw, awakens the twigs. The hush of the room breaks, the sweet crackle of flame expanding, just enough to fill the silence. It is a hungry sound, not vicious, but definite. You feed the flame slowly, tucking a bit more kindling into the corners, shielding it from drafts with your body, encouraging it with careful breath. You feel the heat on your face before you truly see the light, dappled in gold, flickering against the soot-stained brick of the oven's mouth. Shadows stretch long behind you, dancing across the floor. One moment ago, the bakery was cold, lifeless. Now, it breathes. The oven is no longer asleep. It is waking. You stand. The flames rise higher, greedy and luminous, licking upward into the dome of the hearth with a sound like silk tearing. The heat rolls out in waves, not scalding, not yet, but creeping across the floor, seeping into the soles of your boots like a cat curling at your feet. You know what comes next. The waiting. You cannot leave the fire now. Not until you know it will last. You settle into your stool beside the oven, the same wooden stool that has borne the weight of countless bakers before you, men with hands like yours, strong fingers, burnt knuckles, faces drawn by heat and time and tiredness. You add logs carefully, one by one, judging their position, watching the way the embers shift beneath them, the way the red glimmers hide and then return, sharpening like distant stars in a winter sky. You watch the flames change color, orange, yellow, and hints of blue-white along the hottest veins. You wait for the soot lining the inside walls to vanish, revealing smooth, pale surfaces, bricks glowing like snow in firelight. That's your sign. That's when you'll know it is ready. But for now, you wait, quietly, calmly, hands resting idle on your knees, face relaxed. You watch, you listen. Occasionally, you rise to adjust, to poke, to sweep a fallen ember aside. Work, wait, observe, repeat. You measure time, not in minutes, but by feeling the gathering warmth in your chest, the weight of the fire on your skin, and through it all, you breathe slowly, rhythmically, as if your lungs are in conversation with the fire itself, giving, taking, learning, There is something ancient about this process, not just in years, but in instinct. You do not need explanation for why it works. It just does, before thermometers, before timers, before modern ovens, with knobs and lights and automatic heat. This is how it was. A brick vault, a flame, a man, that is all. You glance toward your proofing bowl. The dough is just beginning to rise. The first hints of bubbling along the surface tell you it's responding too, just as the flames are. Two lives waking, two hearts beginning to beat. One made of yeast and breath, one made of embers and air. After more than 2 hours of fire tending, you know the end is near. You pull your sleeve over your hand and reach toward the oven's lip. Not to touch, not quite, but to feel the breath of it. You hear it first. A low, steady hum of heat held tight inside a newly hungry mouth. Then the light, none of the chaotic flickering of first fire, but a steady pulsing glow. It hums like sleep. Then the test. You take a pinch of flour from your pouch and flick it into the center of the oven floor. It lands silent, sits for a long beat, then turns golden, then brown, miraculously even, neither burning nor resting. Perfect. You smile faintly, just the shift in your lip, a silent, unseen celebration. The beast is ready. And now, so are you. The room still hums with the warmth of the oven, a subtle throb in the stones beneath your feet. But elsewhere, the air remains cool, damp against your skin, a feeling that sharpens the edge of your focus as you turn away from the fire you fed and back to the bowl resting quietly on the shelf. You lift the linen cloth once more, slowly, carefully, and beneath it, your starter has changed. Where before there was sluggishness, now there is motion, gentle, subtle, alive. The surface domes slightly, and tiny bubbles freckle its skin, as though it has been breathing in its sleep. When you dip your spoon into the center, it sighs, collapsing softly inward, with the delicacy of a sponge touched by fingertips. This is the moment you've waited for. It's awake now, fully. And that means it's time to begin the labor your body knows better than any words, the work of turning breath into bread. You approach the trough like a farmer before the plow, a wide, heavy basin hewed from thick wood, its interior stained by years of flour and salt and sweat. This is not a kitchen's mixing bowl. This is a vessel shaped by necessity and reverence, waist high, and deep enough to hold enough dough to feed a village. You run your fingers along its lip, smooth and dry, warm where it sits near the wall beside the oven's outer edge. Even the vessel has memory. Its boards creak as you lean in. Somewhere in the wood, the warmth of hundreds of previous mornings still lingers. You take your cloth sacks from their hooks, dragging one across the edge of the trough. The flour spills with a muted hush, cascading like sand, cool and soft between your fingers, puffing slightly as it lands in a tall, pale mound. Another bag, a darker flour, coarser, richer with grain and husk. You mix slowly by hand, fingers sifting, swirling, blending the two textures into something familiar, something with character, not too fine, not too rough. You know this flour by scent, by weight, by the resistance it gives your hands. Too light, it won't hold form. Too dense, and the bread will sit in the belly like a stone. Then salt, pinch after pinch from your wooden scoop, not measured by scale, but by feel, by instinct. Salt is strength. Salt tempers the dough, reigns in the wildness of the yeast. Without it, the bread would rise too fast, collapse under its own ambition, and taste like nothing. Too much, and you crush all breath from it. Then water. Not scalding, not cold, just warm enough to coax movement into the blend. without shocking it. The moment the first stream of water hits the flour, the sound changes. What had been dry and airy becomes weighted and wet and alive with intent. You work it in slowly, your hands deep in the mixture, fingers spread, twisting, turning. You fold, you lift, you press, and into this mass, you fold the starter. Its consistency, sticky, elastic, almost stubborn. The scent, acidic and fruity and raw, rises like a spirit from the bowl coiling around your throat, so familiar you don't notice it anymore. At first, everything resists. The flour doesn't want to bind. The water runs in lines that escape your palms, and the starter fights the mix like something too wild to tame. But you continue, steadily, patiently. You lean in, shifting your weight forward, shoulder against the edge of the trough, your palms and forearms beginning the roll and press that forms the rhythm of your morning. The dough snarls under your fingers. It coils and slips. It sticks to the boards, to your hands, to everything it touches. You push it backward and down, then pull it forward again, a cradling and stretching all at once. Your breath grows heavier. Your palms redden. Sweat beads just above your eyebrow and slips down your nose in silence. There is no other sound in the room apart from your breath and the wet, low thud of hands into dough, a steady, patient hush. Thud, press, stretch, fold. You become a part of the trough, one engine made of weary limbs and steady motion, bound to your task not just by necessity, but familiarity, comfort in the known, peace in the repetition. The dough begins to shift. You feel it first, where your palms meet its surface, no longer wet and greedy, but soft, springing slightly, folding into itself with grace. Its texture alters in ways visible only to your fingertips. The gluey stickiness becomes cohesion. The slack shape grows taut, and when you press it down firmly, it fights back now, gently but insistently. This means the gluten is building, though you never call it that, not with that word. In your heart you know it, as the structure, the bones, the net. With each push and pull, you are setting the frame of the bread to be. You are giving it muscle and purpose and spring. This is touch-made science, violence turned grace. Time stretches strangely here, in the arc of your back and the ache of your shoulders. It could have been 15 minutes. It could be 30, but then there is a moment you always wait for, the window pane test. Your ritual. You pinch a small piece from the edge and roll it between your fingers, stretching it until it grows almost translucent, like parchment, like lantern skin. You hold it up to what little light is beginning to gather in the high corners of the room, and it shines just enough to tell you what you already know. It is ready. Not finished, but ready. You scoop the dough from the trough with practiced speed, rolling it into a great heavy ball with the sides of your forearms and the flats of your palms, muscles protesting under the weight. You guide it into a clay bowl, dusted lightly with flour, where it falls with a relieved sigh, a soft exhale from the depths of grain and water. You cover it again with linen, folding the fabric's edges carefully to stop dryness from creeping in, and you place it beside the oven, not too near, not too far, where the ambient heat will stroke it gently and encourage it to rise. But you are not done. Behind you, resting like a shadow, squat against the farther wall, is the coarse sack of dark flour, rye, bran, shards of other harvests, the flour of the poor. You open its mouth and dip in a scoop. The smell is earthy, heavier, more bitter than sweet. You build a smaller portion in the same trough, same care, same water, same hands, But the texture here is different. It doesn't want to stretch. It clings. It clumps. There is less forgiveness in it. Less spring, more stubbornness. You wet your arms up to your elbows and force it together in hard, close movements, compressing, pinching, slamming it back against the boards. This is not a dough that listens. This is one that must be convinced. Over time, you recognize its pattern too. Rough and uncooperative as it is, it still changes, still softens, still learns its shape. Enough, perhaps, to make the bread that matters to so many, those who cannot afford the round loaves with split tops and soft crumb. This one will be denser, darker, and stronger. And for them, for the workers in fields and forges and mountains, it must last. You shape it roughly into heavy oblongs, cradling each one with your arms like a sack of grain, and place it too in bowls lined with coarse linen smeared lightly with oil. These you shift closer to the ground, where the heat is slower, softer, suited to their slower nature. You clean your hands now. The water in the bucket is no longer clear. It runs white with flour and sticky with residue. You scrub until you can feel your palms breathe again, cracked skin and all, and watch the drying flour cake around your nails like clay. You exhale, stand, your shoulders throb, your breath comes out like the end of a song. But there is something in you, quiet and whole, that feels settled. You've done your part. The hard labor is through, and just behind you, beneath linen shrouds, your dough begins to breathe. The bowls sit still in the glow of early morning shadow, resting beneath their linen blankets like sleeping children, breathed upon gently by the steady, radiant warmth rising from the face of the oven. The air here is thicker now, warmed and heavy with flour and salt and ash, a scent dense enough to taste grain, sweat, stone, and breath. And under those cloths, quiet miracles are beginning. The dough rises in silence. It swells not in hurried leaps, but slowly, as if unsure of the space it is now occupying. The surface, once smooth, is now gently domed, its skin stretching with intricate tension, small dimples pimpling the mass like freckles on warmed skin. If you peer closely, you can see tiny veins traced beneath its surface, veins of air, veins of life. Bubbles form within, not large, not loud, but persistent, patient, gathering their strength 1 minute at a time. Inside, unseen, the wild yeast is feeding, gnawing at sugars, turning them into warmth and gas. The dough expands from the inside out, a soft exhalation too slow to measure, but too steady to stop. Stillness becomes motion. Death becomes breath. And beside the yeast, working alongside it though, never in competition, the quiet soldiers of sourness, the lactobacilli, work tirelessly, unnoticed, carving out that beautiful, subtle acidity that defines what you know as real bread. Those tiny fermenting microbes, invisible to every patron who will one day taste this bread's crust or crumb, are now hard at labor. And you, though tired, let them take over now. The shaping of the soul has begun. Their dance will last a short hour, perhaps an hour and a half. You've learned not to watch the clock, but the curve of the dough, its scent, the gentle give beneath your finger when you press its side. You glance now at the baskets, woven from reed, lined and floured, waiting like cradles on the long workbench, each one a resting place for what will soon take final shape. You run your palm across the inside rim of one basket, then two, a thin trail of flour dust following your touch. The baskets creak faintly, moaning low like old shutters in the wind, their fibers stretching slightly from last night's humidity. You lean over them and blow gently, dislodging excess powder. One by one, you prepare them for what's to come. Nearby, a small cloth pouch holds your mark, your stamp, your proof, the symbol by which any loaf can be traced back to your name. It's nothing extravagant, just a wooden stamp carved years ago into the shape of your initials entwined with a cross. Simple, but unforgettable. Your father once used the same mark, though the cross leans slightly to the left. Your sons perhaps one day will tilt right. You take up your blade, dull along most of its length, except where you've spent hours sharpening the precise curve of its tip. This is not a weapon. This is your chisel. With it, you will etch the final instruction into the skin of your risen dough, how it should open, where it should breathe, what shape it should take as it meets the fire, but not yet. Your hands hover just above the bowl nearest you. White dough, soft and round, like the stomach of a creature asleep, waits beneath its cloth. You peel the fabric back with both hands. No rush, no tug, letting air ease in the way wind enters a chapel. The dough is fully risen now. You can tell by the way it sighs as the cloth lifts, not slumping, but settling as if it knows its time. You press a single fingertip into its side, slowly, deliberately. The dough dents, yields, and doesn't bounce back. This is what you were waiting for. You flour the work table, not to excess, just enough to dull the stick of warm dough on the wood. You turn the bowl and empty the mass out soft as a fallen cloud, a round and beautiful shape collapsing into the world with grace. It spreads slightly, but holds together. There is strength in the base now, purpose in the muscle. You feel it even before your hands touch down. The bench knife slides underneath, a swift scrape, a pull, then the dough becomes a dozen divided parts, equal not by scales, but by the years of memory printed into your palms. Your hands, like honest scales, know every ounce by pressure. Each piece is pinched at the sides, rounded softly into itself, the edges tucked and turned under as if folding blankets for a child. Ball after ball, your hands shape and press and round until the table holds a dozen shining orbs, smooth-skinned and exactly, quietly right. Then, rest again. Only a few minutes now. The dough must let go of the memory of division. It must relax, slacken slightly before it can be formed into its final self. You leave it uncovered for a moment and turn instead to the darker dough, coarser, heavier, reluctant to rise, but risen nonetheless. Even after the same hours, it has swelled less, held back a bit of its breath. That's its nature. A tighter crumb, a firmer hold, but it too is ready. You shape it into loaves not round, but long, flattened. Loaves that stack well, that slice easily, that carry in a sack without bruising. These won't be placed in woven baskets. They'll rise again on wooden boards, lined with coarse flour instead of cloth, sturdy planks that echo with each thump as you place the dough upon them. These breads are less for display and more for eating. You return to the white dough, shaped and rested, and begin its final transformation. From the palm of your hand to the cloth-lined basket, each ball rolled again with tender pressure, opened along the bottom to create tension on the top. This tension, invisible to all outside the trade, is everything. It controls the oven spring, the crackle of crust, the split down the crown that tells the whole town who knows how to bake. You nestle each dough crown down into its basket, flour up now, and when you lift your hands and look down, they are perfect. Surreally uniform, yet not a single one identical. Some people think of bread as simple, as food, but not here. Not like this. You cover the baskets. Again, the same cloths, worn, stained, blessed by heat and yeast. You tuck them in as though wrapping babies in winter. Your arms are tired now, your shoulders beginning to ache, and the smell in the room is stronger than before, earthier, rich, with ancient breath. Nothing in here is quiet anymore. Even without sound, the baskets hum with heat and breath and becoming. Outside, beyond the walls of your shop, the deep blue of night has begun to pale, a blush of silver-gray fingers at the very edges of the shutters. Out there, the town is still sleeping. The merchants, the soldiers, the widow down the lane, the boys who will soon beg for crusts. You will feed them all, though they may not say thank you, though they may never think of the hours between now and sunup that carried this bread to life. But now, 3 knocks at the door, a code, light and polite. You go to it, arms dusted in flour, hands clean enough. On the other side stands the young monk, robe too big for his thin frame, his hands cupping a cloth-covered basket. You know the weight of it before you even lift the edge. Flat, heavy, dense. Communion wafers, or their dough at least, unleavened, pure, no salt, no yeast, only wheat and water, kneaded without warmth, formed with reverence. These you won't shape, you won't score. You merely set them aside, and later, carefully place them in the cleanest corner of your oven when its heat has softened from flame to glow. A sacred chore, one you honor in silence, always. You nod to the monk. He nods back. He trusts you. Soon after, he disappears into the fading hush of morning. You return to your workbench. The dough is stirring now, within its cradle baskets. You don't need to see it to know. You can feel it beneath your skin. The pressure in the hands that shaped it, the warmth in the air that surrounds it, the subtle looseness in the weave of cloth that now balloons ever so slightly above each bowl. They are breathing again, and soon they will face the flame. The room is still, but not in silence. No, now it thrums with the soft tension of readiness, an air made thicker by time, heat, and expectation. You move quietly, almost reverently, like someone in a temple with fire for a god and bread for prayer. Every breath you take feels measured, balanced against the breath of the dough, still curled in its baskets behind you, waiting not like victims, but like volunteers, each one swollen to its final puff of life, round and heavy and warm beneath the cloth. They have stopped rising now. You can feel it in their steadiness, a stillness that isn't sleep, but a kind of perfect pause, as if they know the next thing must be fire. Your hands tremble, not with fear, but with the sharp edge of precision that always finds you in this moment. This, more than mixing and kneading and shaping, is the test. Timing here is not a matter of convenience. It is the soul of success. Too soon, and the dough will fight the heat, shrink into itself, bursting at edges not meant to open. Too late, and it will collapse inward, deflated, overfed. You speak to no one, but your intuition sings. You turn toward the oven. It is no longer a hungry thing. You fed it hours ago, tamed it. Now it's glowing, not roaring. Its mouth no longer gummy with ash or rough with wood, but hollow and shimmering with quiet fury. Inside, the bricks have turned pale, smooth, dreamlike. They shine faintly, like old porcelain kissed by fire. No flames now, only that deep, dry heat that doesn't dance, but pulses. This is the kind of heat that lingers long after the fire dies, seeping from the walls of the oven like a memory that refuses to fade. You reach for your peel, a long-handled wooden board, thin and flat, its rounded paddle wide enough to cradle a loaf, worn soft from countless dawns, just like this one. Not polished, but smoothed, patinaed by flour and time and careful movement. You hold it like a sword, not to strike, but to lay down a challenge. Then the baskets, one by one, you uncover them, unveiling the dough, as though unveiling a portrait. The air that greets you smells like breath and muscle, like a field of grain after rain, like something that has waited too long to become what it was always meant to be. You flip the first basket with a swift but careful turn, the dough falling like a warm stone onto the floured surface of your peel. It lands with a soft thud, not delicate, but full. Its skin is taut, barely holding the swell inside. Now the blade. In your other hand is your grignette, a handle of worn bone, or maybe driftwood. Its small curved blade held in place by a strip of aged leather, unassuming at first glance. But in moments like this, it holds the future. You slash quickly. 1, 2, maybe 3 graceful cuts in the surface, the steel whispering through the dough like a sigh through parchment. You're not cutting it open so much as telling it where to break, offering it an escape, guiding its bloom. These slashes will become wings, ears, ridges that crisp and rise, catching fire and rising upward instead of tearing sideways. Controlled chaos, honest heat. Then comes the stamp. Your mark pressed into the side, not too deep. The dough accepts it, silently. You turn toward the oven. Then comes the moment you hold your breath for, every time. You lift the peel carefully, feeling the weight of the dough shift backwards slightly, then forward again as you align it with the oven's mouth. The heat rolls out in a wave that wraps around your wrists, sinking into your skin like hot breath. Your eyes water slightly from it, not in pain, just in response, like the body knows it's come too close to something primeval. You bend slightly, engage the long muscles of your shoulders and back, and push the peel forward with a steady glide, expertly tilting, allowing the dough to slide smoothly off its back and into the darkness. It lands soundlessly, but you can feel it. Something shifts, something begins. You withdraw the peel, turn, do it again. Another basket, another flip, another cut, another breath, held as the dough kisses the stone. And again, 12 white loaves. Then the heavier rise shapes, more oblong, less prone to spring, but every bit as proud. Their surfaces receive fewer slashes, smaller windows. Their skin is more reserved, less show, but full of power. You place these nearer the front of the oven, where the heat is slightly cooler, steadier. After all your hands have placed the final loaf, you step back. Now, finally, you close the door. It thuds shut with a dull finality, wood and iron muffling the fire's breath inside. No smoke escapes, no glow, just trapped light and pressure and memory. You seal the edges with a damp cloth, stuffing it between gaps in the stone arch, slowing the loss of precious steam. That steam, the final ingredient, helps the crust form thin, caramel-colored, brittle. Without it, the skin hardens too early, strangling the final rise. You lean against the workbench, your arms flushed, your shoulders sagging, and you listen. At first, there is nothing. Then, crackling. At first, faint, almost imaginary. But there it is, a sound like kindling snapping in someone else's fire. Then a drip. No. A hiss. Steam. The dough sweating, adjusting, expanding. The slashes you carved now splitting wider. no longer under tension but stretching open with relief. Inside, under that gathering crust, air pockets grow. The yeast is dying now, but not before its final gift. One last bloom of gas that sends the center up, just a little more. The final breath. And then, the strongest scent. It doesn't come at once. It unfurls, grainy and sweet. A smell impossible to mimic. Toasted flour, dried milk, warmth. It grows slowly, pacing itself. Your bakery fills with it. Then the corners of the street outside. That smell, wild, maternal, magnetic, creeps out through gaps in the shutter and under the door. People can smell it in their dreams. Some rouse early because of it, never knowing why. It's in their memory now, waking them like a bell doesn't, not ringing, rising. You pace slowly, checking the oven only by ear and scent. No timers, no probes, no lights. You know, you touch the outer bricks with the back of your hand to measure the heat's retreat. You tap the side of the oven to hear the crust speaking. Faint, irregular pops as tiny fissures harden. You count the minutes by feeling, by instinct, by the distant toll of a church bell marking tears of mourning. Eventually, you lift the door slightly, just enough to allow one gust of scent to leave, one flicker of light to return. Golden. You don't even speak. Your breath catches, just briefly, born again. You reach in, this time with a different peel, a wide metal one, cool to the touch, smooth from years of gliding underneath hot bread. One by one, you pull the loaves free, their bottoms tapping crisply against the paddle as you lift. They are heavier than they were, but lighter too, transformed. Their crusts shimmer, flecked with flour, the ridges now full and bold where your blade once whispered. You lift one, a round loaf with slashed ears rising like wings, and knock its base with your knuckles. A hollow knock. Perfect. You line them on the wide wooden racks near the window, angled slightly, so the air can circulate, so the crust can breathe. If you listen closely, you can hear the surface crackling as it cools, tiny sharp sounds like miniature ice melting in the mouth. This is the final voice of the loaf, telling you everything is well. And the smell now, my God, the smell you could weep for it. Sweet, roasted grain, the caramel curl of Maillard reaction, yeasty depth, sour whisper, wood smoke echo, old magic. This is your cathedral. This is your hymn. This is the moment before the door opens, before customers enter, before coins change hands, before exhaustion tips into sleep. You, standing in the middle of a shop full of bread still too hot to touch, arms by your sides, heart uncoiling slowly. You did this with your breath, with your fire, with your hands. The sun has not yet fully risen, but the sky is no longer a void. Soft, powdery gray now replaces the unbroken black of night, and in that transformation there is peace. Outside, silent rooftops glow faintly in the half-light, beams of morning sidling between chimneys and shutters, brushing across cobblestones that still cling to the dampness of night. The town is stirring, slowly, but in your bakery, the day has already taken its first breath. The racks behind you are heavy now, burdened with dozens upon dozens of fresh, finished loaves, yet nothing in the room feels heavy. Instead, there is a lightness, an unseen lifting that hangs in the air like rising steam. You know that within minutes, it will begin. The door will open, and with it, the rest of the world. So you move to the front of the shop, fingers dusted in flour, arms streaked with memory, footsteps soft on warm stone. The door's thick crossbeam is in place, more barricade than handle, and you lift it slowly, pressing its weight over your shoulder and setting it aside with care rather than urgency. You unlatch the lock. A sharp click echoes louder than expected in the quiet. You pull open the door. Morning rushes in, not with wind or sound, but with freshness. A shift in temperature, cooler but somehow cleaner, filled with garden scents and chimney smoke, and the breath of horses down the lane. It ruffles the edge of your shirt, kisses the sweat from your neck. You exhale deeply, not from effort, but from release. And then it happens. The scent escapes. It pours outward, unstoppable and generous, like an invitation written in the oldest language the human body can understand. Warm bread, sweetened air, a faint whisper of smoke lingering at the edges like an old song. It winds into alleys, around corners, slips under doors and through window cracks. It doesn't ask. It enters. Somewhere up the street, you hear footsteps pause, then turn, then come toward you. The first to arrive is exactly who you expected. A knock. Not on the frame, but from knuckles, rapping against the edge of your display counter. Heavy, familiar. You don't need to look. Same as yesterday? You ask, already reaching behind you. The big loaf. The darkest rye, crust like armor, crumb like dense earth, forgiving and strong. The blacksmith grunts, a sound you've long since come to understand as a yes. He drops coins onto the wood, thick copper pieces, rim-worn and smudged from ash and oil. You count them by sound, by feel. He doesn't wait for confirmation. He knows you're honest. He grabs the bread with one hand, nods and leaves before the next customer steps in. They come in ones and twos at first, like droplets from a slow rain. Early risers, merchants, cart drivers, chimney sweeps, a midwife on her way from a long call, a carpenter who's already sharpening tools by lantern light. They speak in half words, in gestures, in the shared language of fatigue. You fill their hands with warm loaves, wrapped in rough linen. They slip coins into your box or leave them on the ledge with a nod. The room warms not with fire, but with rhythm. Business is ritual, and you know each movement. Soon, the second wave arrives. Brighter colors now, the wives of musicians and tailors, older children running errands with cloth bags tucked under their arms. They stay longer. Ask questions. They examine crusts, tap bottoms, squeeze gently. They smile when you offer them a handful of crumbs from the torn end of yesterday's leftover loaf. Not waste, but proof. They gossip quietly with your wife, who has now stepped out from the back, hair tied back, sleeves rolled to her elbows, her hands already busy counting coin and tying knots. No words pass between you, but none are needed. The way you pass each other, turning side by side like gears in a mill, expresses more than conversation ever could. Outside, the street is now alive. Metal wheels creak, hooves clatter, voices rise like sparrows from the rooftops. The town wakes with sound and movement, and at the center of it, your shop stands open, as it does every morning, with stacked racks like rows of golden bricks, waiting for hands to carry them home. The bread you've made tells its own story to those who know how to read it. The bright, gold-crusted rounds, soft on the inside, white flour, sieved and rare, made for those with coin to spend and comfort to expect. The paler, plainer loaves, more filling than flavorful, half white, half bran, meant for the everyday crowd, shopkeepers, teachers, retired soldiers with worn hands and kind voices. And the darkest, crustiest loaves, hard as stone and satisfying as stew, made for long days in the field, packed unwrapped in cloth sacks, slung over shoulders, or tied beneath carts. None of them are labeled, but everyone knows which bread belongs to whom. You never ask who they are, but you know them all. Soon, the morning begins to fade into something closer to full light. The line at your door shrinks. The shelves grow sparse. Here and there, an extra crust, a broken corner, a warped loaf. Your son arrives, hair wild, knees dirty, eyes bright. He runs behind the counter and throws his arms around your wife's waist with a grin so wide it silences every hardship you've buried deep in your joints. She tussles his head. He sits on a stool and watches, not yet old enough to help, but old enough to understand that something important begins here. You hand him a small, misshapen roll, a test batch from earlier, not perfect but still warm, and he takes it with the reverence of a king. He bites in, and you see the steam twist up from between his fingers, curling around his cheek. The way he closes his eyes, chews slowly, smiles faintly. It's the same look your father once wore at this counter, and his father before him. Outside your door, horses pass, and laughter now, loud enough to rise over wheels and footsteps. Someone's poured their first mug of ale. The church bell rings in the background, not for prayer, but to mark time, to remind the town that it is now officially morning. Your neighbors finish their shopping. Children run ahead with loaves clutched to their chests. One or two stop to wave at your son, who waves back with a mouth still full. He laughs. You start to hum. Your wife holds a scrap of waxed cloth and brushes crumbs toward a basket near the counter's lip, where pigs feed and villagers' soup starters wait to be chosen by those who come last, not least. There is one final wave. The wealthier, those who come later, because they know their bread will be waiting. There's the lawyer's servant, the one with fine boots and impatient eyes, the widow who speaks in murmured tones, dressed in finer black than your whole shop owns, the steward for the alderman's house, who places a silk-lined pouch of coin upon the counter, weighs his chosen loaves twice, and leaves without a word. The smell in the room shifts subtly from flour, sweet, to perfume sharp, but the bread does not judge. You wrap theirs as carefully as you wrap the rest. Then it slows. There are still loaves. Not many, just a few, crusts speckled deep brown, warm to the touch, still speaking softly to the air in their cooling. And at the edge of the counter, your hands rest flat, fingers stretched, not idle, just still. There is a quiet that follows the rush, not silence, but a new kind of softness, not absence, but breath caught between inhale and exhale, a pause between pieces of music. And outside, the sun finally crests the rooftops and touches the windows across the lane. Light enters your bakery, like it always has, in streaks through flour haze, broken by heat and wood smoke. You lean against the edge of the counter, looking out. The street is shining wet where the frost has melted. A child chases pigeons around the corner. Somewhere, someone is slicing into the loaf they bought an hour ago, and that slice will carry the echo of your hands, of your labor, of fire. And though no one says your name in that moment, you are there all the same, in crust, in crumb, in every bite. The rush is over, but your body doesn't yet believe it. Your hands still twitch with the ghost of repetition, grasping, wrapping, weighing, fingers aching in quiet pulses from the morning's labor. Your arms tingle from residual heat. Your eyes drift without focus across the racks, now mostly cleared, and the table now littered with small crusts, flour stains, scraps of parchment, and a few forgotten coins touched smooth by 100 hands. The floor is striped with footprints traced in flour, and cooled by the air that still floats in from the open door. Your wife moves around you silently, sweeping, folding, organizing the till one coin at a time, with the slow, efficient grace of someone who has done this as long as you have. The boy has gone out again, chasing noise in the street, perhaps tossing pebbles into the alleyway puddle that lies mysteriously deep for such a small dent in the stones. Your breathing softens, but a shift comes. Not outside, not with sound, not even heat, just shadow. It falls softly across your doorstep. At first, there's nothing in it to fear. The kind of shadow that arrives with tall men or wide hats, just a brush of coolness slipping across wood, but your heart knows. Before your eyes do, it beats differently, slower, heavier, as though trying to remind you of something important that you might have forgotten for only a moment. And then you see him. You don't need his name. You already know. The dark robe, smooth and properly pressed, the neat chain around the neck, the scroll case, the soft gloved hands that are always empty and yet carry more weight than a sack of flour. Thomas, inspector of bread, the guild's man. He doesn't smile. He never does. His expression exists in a place between neutrality and quiet suspicion, as if every inch of the world is guilty unless measured, weighed, and proven otherwise. He does not greet you. He does not knock. He simply steps forward into your shop with authority too heavy for his slender frame. And still, the room tightens around him, like cloth pulled too taut over a loaf, left to rise too long. Air gone, space reduced, breath snagged in the throat. He sets his leather satchel on the counter with the slow calm of someone placing a scalpel rather than a purse. From it, he pulls his instruments, one by one, like clockwork, a brass set of weights, a polished handheld balance, a tally stick, and a worn little book with cracked binding that smells faintly of salt and ink and the sweat of judgment. Everything is deliberate. Nothing is rushed. The customer's still browsing. Go quiet. One man clears his throat, then decides against the loaf he'd been holding. Footsteps, scuffle. A woman lifts her child closer to her shawl and exits without a word. You glance at your wife. She nods almost imperceptibly and busies herself folding cloth bags at the back. There is a moment, thin and long and cold, where everything in the room holds still. You move first. You reach to one of your last loaves, a medium-sized white, well-baked, still warm on the bottom, but already cooling at the edges. You hand it to him without ceremony, withholding explanation or apology. He takes it into his long fingers, turning it slowly, placing it onto the brass scale with ritualistic precision. The weights drop into the balance one by one, their clinks landing in the silence like drum beats in a narrow chapel. You don't blink. You don't move. You've already done everything. There's nothing left to adjust. If you missed the flour by a pinch, if the moisture in the room shifted the rise by half a breath, if the proofing went seconds too long, then it is already far beyond your power to sway. The needle on the scale wavers. Back, forth, then still. Right in the center, Thomas merely writes something in his book. He doesn't nod. He doesn't speak. Just marks a line with a small wooden stylus, then proceeds. He picks up a darker loaf, your rye, but doesn't measure. Instead, he presses it lightly with his thumb, tests its give, lifts it to his nose, and inhales once, shallowly. Then he slices off a thin sliver with a pale-handled blade, so surgically clean that the cut crust barely crumbles. He wedges a piece between his teeth, chews with no visible shift in expression, and swallows. Again, nothing noted aloud. His pen moves, another line, another silent verdict. He finishes by inspecting your flour. Not all of it, of course, but enough. He opens a sack, dips 3 fingers in, lifts the flour to his lips, and tastes it, dry, as if it were snow. His face doesn't change, but you can tell he's satisfied, if only by the fact that he doesn't dip twice. He wipes his fingers on a spare cloth and closes the sack again with more care than you might have expected. Each movement of his hand is rehearsed, trained, inflexible, not made of malice or kindness, just rules, cold ones. There was no fault, no error. Still, your spine only relaxes when he puts the weights and stylus back in their slots, folds the ledger, and seals the clasp on his satchel once more. When he speaks, it is without inflection. You may continue business. Then silence. No compliment, no praise, just permission. He does not offer goodbye. He turns, steps cleanly out onto the street, and disappears into the crowd before his shadow even finishes, leaving your doorway. It's only after he's gone that the shop breathes again. You release your grip on the counter without realizing you were holding it. Your knuckles ache. Your wife sighs very softly and closes the drawer she was already pretending to organize. A boy peeks in from the side alley. Wide-eyed, you give him a half smile and call him in with a nod. The shop returns to its rhythm. The guild is necessary. And you know this. The law protects you as much as it binds you. The bread and ale assizes ensure that others, men without your training, your patience, your obsession with even loaves, don't flood the streets with poor bread and ruin what dignity remains for serious tradesmen. Without the guild, mold would masquerade as crust, chalk would mix with flour, and dishonest hands would pass unjust weights to unknowing mouths. Still, you can't help but resent the cold way the law treats your life like numbers on a scroll. They never dip their fingers into warm dough. They never kneel before the fire with a breath so still it dares not disturb a rising loaf. And yet, they have power over everything you've built. Your bread must be consistent, legal, honest, its weight exact, its color proper, price adjusted, as grain prices rise and fall like tides. You change your recipes not with whim or artistry, but with parchment notices nailed to the town post, alerting all bakers of modest station what flour they may use this week, what price they shall ask, what punishment follows if even 1 coin is taken above law. Some do not understand. They ask why, when they order a dozen loaves, you always hand them 13. They assume you do it from warmth, or fear, or foolish old tradition. Even the wealthy think the extra is for them, a show of respect for their coin. You do not correct them, but truth lives elsewhere. Because you know that no scales are perfect. You know that flour can dry too fast or sink too wet, that crusts can shrink in the heat, and crumbs hold air differently in spring than in autumn. And because even when you give your best, you could be faulted. So when they ask for 12, you give 13, always. It is not a gift, it is a shield. A baker's dozen is not kindness. It is the cost of breathing freely, of not being pilloried in the square with a loaf tied around your neck and your name on the pole for all to laugh behind their hands. 13 is safety, and it might just be the thing that lets you sleep at night. You reach for your next customer with a calm nod and offer them their chosen breads, the extra one already placed in the bundle. They thank you with widened eyes, as if you've done them a nobility. You smile faintly and turn back to the rack. Eventually, even the bread runs out. Only crumbs remain now. Traces of crust, flour-dusted baskets, and the quiet scent of heat that's slowly ebbing toward memory. You rub your hands together Shake the flour from your apron and look out once more at the brightening day, calmer now, but still moving forward. As always, the law has passed over you for another day. Your bread has been measured, your weight accepted, your craft acknowledged, if only by its survival. And for now, that is enough. The light outside has shifted again. Brighter now, sharper, tilted, with the fullness of midday, the kind of sun that casts long, defined shadows along the eaves of crooked-roofed homes and glints off the iron rims of wagon wheels. The sounds from the street no longer belong to morning. There's laughter now, clearer, louder, doors creak open and stay that way. Pots clatter on distant hearths, water sloshes sloppily into pails drawn fresh from the well. Children shout names and argue over sticks turned into swords. Horses snort. A dog barks once, then again. Somewhere nearby, a church bell rings slowly, once, calling not for prayer, but for notice. It's midday. And here, in your shop, the customers have thinned, not vanished, but trickled. One or two women pass by and glance gently through the open doorway without stepping in, noting how bare the racks now look, how only a few loaves remain, perhaps the hardest black breads, heavier than hands expect, loaves meant for stews and soldiers, long winters and strong jaws. Some bread, waits for no one but the weary. Though the early market trade has passed, you do not rest. Not yet. Not today. This hour, often overlooked or forgotten, now belongs to others. This is the time when your oven becomes more than yours, when fire is no longer a private ritual but a public one. This is when your bakery, already a pillar of bread, becomes the heart of something far greater, a communal hearth, a warmth shared not in coin, but necessity. They begin to arrive, one by one. Not customers exactly, not buyers. Call them neighbors, friends, stragglers with hope. They enter not with purses in hand, but with trays balanced on hips, baskets dangling from bent elbows, a certain mixture of humility and confidence in every motion. They know what they bring, and they know what they need from you. A young woman with flour still beneath her fingernails carries in a tin pan swaddled in cloth, inside it a chicken nearly bursting from its carcass with spice, butter, cabbage leaves, wild herbs, legs tied delicately, bits of rosemary poking through folds like green feathers. She tilts her head and without words asks for placement. You nod and take the dish like a priest receiving an offering, careful with the precious oil just starting to bead at its surface. Into the oven it goes. Behind her, a boy, no older than your own son, holds a poorly balanced wooden tray with a lopsided pie, pastry cracked down one side, fruit bubbling at the edge, sugar caramelizing at the crust, where mother's hand grew unsteady, but it's beautiful in its honesty. He doesn't speak either. You dust off a flat peel, lift the pie onto it, and slide it into the side chamber of the oven, where the heat lingers warm and polite, perfect for tenderness. Soon your front room fills once more, not with hungry cues, but voices, smells, laughter, requests, a stew pot lined with duck fat, a shallow basin of dough that someone else kneaded before sunrise, hoping to borrow the glory of your fire even if they can't buy your bread. A roast slowly glazed in honey and laced with sage, another pie, two more. A flatbread with crushed leeks and cheese, a shallow bowl filled with soaked beans, spiced with garlic and little else, a small brick of oat dough meant for horses, but infused with a bit of drippings saved from the last feast. Everything is offered as if handed over to a sacred flame. There are coins, yes, small ones, worn and passed hand to hand until smooth as shells, and you never ask for them. You accept them only when offered. This is not commerce. Not exactly. It is agreement. It is custom. Households cannot always afford fires strong enough or ovens large enough to hold even a single pan. They cannot risk smoke turning inward or flames swallowing that night's only meal. They look to you because your flame is always fed, because your walls are thick enough to hold the heat, because you know when to open, when to seal, when to add the next bit of ash pale wood to coax more life from dying coal. By now, the heat in the room has changed, not fierce, but radiant, like standing beside something who breathes. You are watching over an entire village's lunch without speaking a word. The shelves nearby have quieted, grown clean. Your own bread racks are now mere furniture, all purpose spent, but the air is filled with something else. The scent of meats heavily basted, juice suspended mid-air before it drips, mingling with sugar, with fruit crusts curling at the edge, with onions peeking through thin dough, with beans hardening slightly around the rim of a clay bowl. Beneath, the fire doesn't roar. It stretches, slow and lazy now, loving everything placed inside without preference or judgment. It's a strange moment, this communal oven time. You step from fire to door to table to peel to fire again, like a dance made of heat and judgment. Occasionally wiping your brow, occasionally peering through gaps in the doorway of the oven, shifting trays not by markings or timers, but by the smell of art nearly complete. One pie emits a hiss, then a sigh, collapsing just slightly in the middle, marking its readiness. You catch it before it grows too brown. The roast chicken begins to blister, its skin snapping in golden bubbles under sage oil. You remove some dishes. Others wait. You know their owners. You know where to place them after. And it is not always food. Sometimes, a woman brings in long scraps of linen to dry by the hearth, or a pot of wax to soften for candle making. Once, a small parcel of herbs hung in a net, meant to dry just so. Fire is not only for food, it is for sustaining, and you are the keeper of that flame. Children return for their mother's meals, carrying hot trays and shaking hands. Some adults come while their stew is still bubbling, just to smell again what they could not cook for themselves. Occasionally, someone offers you a bite, a strip of crust, a slice of turnip from a cooked mash. You taste all of it, not out of greed, but duty, because food made here is shared, because there is no border between the baker and the town when the oven is open. You begin to cool the oven slowly. You prop the door an inch, draw ash to the front with a tired metal rake, and douse small parts of the wall with wetted cloth, steam lifting in fragrant clouds that carry everyone's ingredients into one great blend: salt and olive, wood and skin. It's sacred, almost, in the way it mixes. A communion, not of ritual, but of survival and joy. Outside, the town moves on. Pigeons gather in the square. A merchant's bell rings 2 short notes. The sun shifts again, deeper now, angled. Afternoon has begun its slow descent. You wipe your hands, and for the first time today, you lean against the counter, not out of necessity, but rest. The oven breathes low. Dozens of bellies across the village sigh in relief before the first spoon ever meets the first lip. And though your own mouth is dry and your fingers soot-streaked and sore, there is pride flickering in your chest like a hearth left glowing beneath grayed ash. For a brief moment, you are no longer just a baker. You are a steward of heat, a keeper of meals, a silent guest in every home you've served. And when the last tray is claimed, the final dish made whole, every taste wrapped tightly in fresh cloth and carried away, You offer no bill, just a nod, just a small smile, because this is not business. This is belonging. The light has softened once more, not by clouds, but by time. Edges blurred, angles dulled, color slipping gently from sky and wood and stone alike, as if the world is settling into a yawn. Outside, the rhythm of the street has quieted, thinned to something gentler. A horse's hooves clop faintly across the stones, less urgent than before, as though both beast and burden know they're headed home. A door clicks shut softly across the square. Distant laughter rises, but it doesn't stay. It drifts upward, then away. The hush has begun. You feel it in your bones before anything else. That long exhale of daylight yielding to the comfort of dusk. Still warm, but not fierce. Still moving, but with no destination. A town returning to itself. Inside your shop, the last of the borrowed trays have been reclaimed. The oven has dimmed into an ember glow, and the tools of the trade, now streaked, scraped, scratched, await their cleansing. The peel rests against the stone wall like a sword hung after war, its handle warm from a dozen firings. The baskets that held the waking loaves now sit empty, a loose trace of flour clinging to the weave where dough once lay, where life once breathed. You begin the end work slowly, methodically, not because you must, but because your body has been taught no other shape. You take the trough first. Its deep wooden sides are flecked with the dried memories of that morning's labor. A few hardened ridges of dough cling stubbornly to the corners, curled like little fossils, hard as stone. You bend over it slowly, arms heavy, shoulders aching in the dull, familiar way that tells you you've done enough. A brush in one hand, a cloth in the other. You scrub not with force, but with certainty, tracing each knot in the wood like an old friend's features, turning what is old into what is ready, ready to be filled again, ready to hold the shape of tomorrow. You wipe, scrape, rinse, breathe, and when the trough is clean again, you rest your palms along the rim and exhale. Then the bowls, the mixing spoons, the baskets, the knives, each handled with care, as if preparing not to store them, but to pass them on. These tools are your inheritance, and someday, if the world shows mercy, they'll be your sons too. You work mostly in silence now. The sounds are small, wood against wood, cloth against clay, the quiet splash of water as it meets worn stone. And then you go to the old barrel, your starter. Hidden beneath its damp cloth, it waits. Around the rim, streaks of dried ferment cling and crack like the edge of a dried stream. You fold back the cloth and lean close. The smell rises up to meet you, sour, strong, ripe with the life inside it. It smells of breath and time, of hands and history, of winter and wheat and home. You feed it slowly, a scoop of flour, a splash of water, your hand moving in gentle circles along the inside edge, coaxing the mixture back to fullness. It thickens, warms under your touch. You wipe young flour from its rim, replace the cloth like a blanket over a sleeping child, and tap the side twice. As always, a silent good night to the living thing that will rise again before you do. Your wife joins you quietly, carrying 2 clay cups and a bowl. Her steps are tired too, but light. You sit on the low stool behind the workbench, and she leans against the other side, legs crossed at the ankle, apron still dusted in flour around the hem. She hands you one of the cups, and you lift it to your lips. It's thin ale this time, brewed lightly with honey and grains, pleasantly bitter beneath its sweetness. It washes away the taste of flame and salt and grain that's collected in your mouth over the last 12 hours. You drink slowly, The warmth slides down behind your ribs and settles there like sleep. Your son squeezes through the half-shut side door, cheeks pink with wind, hair wild and matted with dust. He still smells of hay, and his palms are scratched, but he's smiling wide, already recounting his afternoon with the urgency only children know, how he climbed the barrel behind the vestry, found a hollow stone beneath the tree, raced the butcher's boy to the hedge line, lost but only just. His hands wave wildly. His voice pitches up and down as the light outside dims into blue, and you listen without needing to respond, your mind storing each fragment, not as fact, but as proof, the proof that your work today has given him this simple joy. He reaches for the last of the misshapen rolls, a crusty end piece from this morning's batch, a little darker at the bottom than ideal, and takes a bite without asking. His teeth crunch through the crust with a satisfying crack, crumbs falling around his collar and onto your worn floorboards. His eyes half close as he chews, as if in that one mouthful is all the comfort the world needs. You ruffle his hair gently as he buries his face in what remains. Later, in the quiet edge of evening, after the bowls are soaked and rinsed and the hearth bricks swept, after the blade has been cleaned and hung, after the crusts have been cleared, and the last coin tucked into a leather pouch for counting, you walk to the table near the back wall. A small pile of coins awaits, the sum of the day's trade. You sort them not by name or seal, but by size, weight, touch. So many of them nicked, worn smooth, bent around the corners, tokens passed from hand to hand, across bread and barrels, for cloth and candles and cups of broth. 1 silver piece, 4 heavy coppers, a dozen light ones. You examine each briefly, more out of habit than suspicion. These are not riches, these are roots. You call your son over and hand him 3 of the rougher coppers. He takes them with 2 hands, eyes wide, shoulders straightening. You teach him, as your father once taught you, how to stack the copper edge against edge, feel for thickness, test the ring when dropped on wood. He listens carefully, and you wonder how long it will be until those fingers are large enough to shape dough instead of just counting it. Darkness has arrived in full now, and with it, that lovely final part of the day you rarely get to savor. Inside, there is no rush left, only hunger. A gentle one. Your wife serves soup in deep earthen bowls and bread on a board between you. A few slices from the loaf you meant to hide, but didn't, still warm at the core. You eat in silence, all 3 of you, heads bowed, not out of ceremony, but comfort. Every bite cradled in quiet. No one thanks you for the bread on the table. They do not need to. You can taste the gratitude in the way no one speaks. After dinner, your wife vanishes into the back with her thread and needles, mending the boy's sleeve beneath the low glow of a lantern left to burn itself down. Your son curls near the hearth, toy in hand, a small bird you carved from scrap wood last week, while waiting for the oven to heat again. Its wing chipped now, tail rough, but he handles it as if it were gold. You lower yourself to the stones beside him, back against the warm wall, knees outstretched. Your muscles sing. Not sharp pain, deeper than that, like tree roots remembering every bit of earth they once pushed through. You blink slowly, the flicker of flame painting shadows across the ceiling. A sigh escapes, without intent, just breath. Finally, let go. The final task comes not with scrubbing or sorting or stirring. It comes with lying down. You pull your shirt over your head, the old wool brushing over tired shoulders. You lead your son to the corner bed, help him into his folded blanket, kiss the top of his hair, and tuck his toy into the crook of his arm. He's already halfway to sleep before you even stand. You smile down. You remember being that boy? You remember the sound of your father's bread cooling in the same oven hearth long before you ever shaped your first loaf. Across the room, your wife already rests, one arm cast gently over the blanket's edge. You join her without a sound, no announcements, no declarations, just the rustle of wool and the creak of straw beneath your back as you sink into the night. Your body softens, piece by piece. The aches do not vanish, but they quiet, wrapped in warmth and stillness. Your arms, which carried wood and dough and flame, surrender to gravity. Your chest, which held breath steady through hours of toil, now rises and falls in slower waves, like tides at the edge of some soft, invisible shore. You blink once more, and then no more. And as your breath deepens and your mind drifts, you find yourself in a field of golden wheat. You feel the brush of grain against your legs, the scent of sun and earth rising from the soil. In the distance, a fire glows, not dangerous, not fierce, but like home. Your oven, standing proud in a meadow. Around it, baskets, bowls, bundles of flour, and laughter. Familiar voices, the breath of those who came before, the steps of your father, the laughter of your son, the flour from your hands scattered on the wind like pollen, like snowflakes, like dust returning to the very ground it once came from. You are not alone here, and you never were. So now, rest, good baker. Let the fire burn low. You have earned your sleep. Sleep soundly. Sleep deeply. Sleep in the warmth of wheat and wood, and dream your bread-shaped dreams.